Retirement is often seen as a destination, but we believe it's an opportunity to pursue your passions, realize your dreams, and live a purposeful life. Great decisions, incredible lives. Retire with Intention podcast is about more than just money. It's about embracing the things that truly matter, the experiences, the relationships, and the impact you leave behind. Here is your host, John Creekmur.
Well, everybody, welcome back to Great Decisions, Incredible Lives. And as you know, every single week we get the sheer privilege and joy to talk to so many incredible people and hear from them and learn from them, and really to take away different actionable items to help us be in a position to make better decisions so we're confident moving over to that next stage of life, whatever that might mean for you. And today, I'm so excited to introduce you to a new friend of ours, Sue Mintz. And Sue has got a phenomenal background, so many great experiences, and she took those experiences and really helped lay out for herself even that next stage of life for the things that she really is interested in doing, passionate about doing, and eager to hear her stories move forward today. And just want to make sure everybody is also aware of, there in the show notes of the show, whether you're watching as far as on a streaming content, or you're listening on a podcast, or wherever your viewership is, there in the notes, there's ways to connect as far as with Sue, find out more about her, and also as far as definitely being able to interact back and forth with us. And I just want to tell you, there's so many different things we've heard back from people over the last year and a half, just about action items they've done, things they've learned, or even sending us pictures of something they accomplished in their life recently that they had heard of right here in our show. So definitely keep those coming in. And also, if you have any topics that you want to pursue in the future, definitely give a shout out. Let myself or Mackenzie know. We'd love to connect with you and find out specifically what you're thinking about. Hey, before we get too far into all of that and maybe get sidetracked by some of that, I want to introduce you to Sue. Sue, can you walk us through your background, introduce yourself to everybody, and also let them know kind of what you're doing now?
Sure. Thank you. And John, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast today. After talking to you just a few minutes ago and hearing about why you do what you do, your why, I just really appreciate you inviting me to be on your podcast today. So thank you very much. A little bit about my background. I actually graduated from college and had a degree in special education. And I taught for a few years and I enjoyed doing that. And then I decided I heard about some corporate jobs that I thought would be of interest. And I got into customer service and then went into training and development, leadership training and development, career coaching, and leadership development. I guess the through line there is that I'm just always want to help people become the best that they can be. So when I retired, I tried to figure out, okay, well, what is it that I can do? What is it that I can do to continue to help people? And unbeknownst to me, there was something called a certified retirement transition coach. And the way I heard about that was, and what inspired me to do it was my husband and I were in New York, and he picked up a Wall Street Journal one day, and on the front page of the business section, there was a gentleman there who had spent his entire career on Wall Street. And he was very successful, made a ton of money, was very happy with that career. He left, he retired, he went on his quote retirement honeymoon for about 6 months, came back, and then he just kind of looked in the mirror one day and went like, what am I going to do? What's next for me? His identity was lost. He didn't feel like he was making a difference anymore. And he did some research himself and found that there was something called a retirement transition coach. So I checked it out. I did some research. I got certified to be a retirement transition coach to help individuals with their transition into retirement. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't talk about money. I just talk about what are we going to do to help you transition into this next phase of life.
Yeah, too, that is such a critical thing. And I think a lot of folks don't recognize, Sue, that, we go through our entire lives and we work, we get a job, we have a career, we make money, we use that to support our family, we set money aside for retirement. But when you do that one thing for 20, 25, 30, 35, maybe 40 years, and that's all then all of a sudden transition to that next stage, quite honestly, is kind of scary for a lot of people. And I would say for everybody, it is like one of the biggest unknowns in their life.
It is.
And man, oh man, that's a story that you'd mentioned as far as on the front page of the paper. But I can tell you, I've met so many people that head to that next stage that quite honestly, they're lost. And so, do you see that also as far as with your clients that of how that they're struggling that transition?
Yes, they are. And they're like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And I'm not sure what it's going to look like on the other side. And so, what we do oftentimes is we talk about other transitions that they've been through. They don't look at retirement really as a transition, they think of it more as an event. I
Mm-hmm.
retire, I have a party, I have a cake, and then that's it. But it's really, like you said, a significant transition. And what I've learned from my clients is, they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that come into play when we retire. For example, we lose our purpose, we lose our identity, we lose, feeling gratitude for helping other people. So with my clients, I talk about, okay, well, what are some of the things that we can do to work through that you can come up with that can maybe replace some of those things, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same thing, but that will give you the same feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction. So
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've been working with the wealth management industry since 1991, and so that's a long time. And I've had the privilege, our firm has, of working with thousands upon thousands of people, helping them get to retirement. And I will say, if our entire firm was wealth advisors, whether it is those that work in branding and communication or technology, those that work in operations, we have a separate internal communication channel. We have a client or someone tied to our firm. When they've transitioned well and they're doing things and they're taking their pictures, they're doing videos, they go on trips, anybody hears about that, that gets put into the separate channel. And it leads into a huge level of excitement because now we're able to see all the work that we've done on the financial side, the planning side, people actually living it out and executing. And
yep.
so that actually came from a point, I'm not going to say depression, but I will say a down day that I had when I encountered a lot of clients over a course of a short period of time of which they had retired, and financially we've done some phenomenal work for them. We saved them money in taxes, helped them build portfolios, had strong income plans, we had their estate plan set.
Mhm.
So those four pillars were put in place. But then all of a sudden I talked to them a month, 3 months, a year, 2 years after they retired, and they had this lack of joy.
Yeah.
They felt hollow, they had lack of purpose. And the big question they started coming up with was, what's the process? What should I have done differently? Is there a step? Check the box. Do this, do this, do this
Yeah.
to help identify that. And so out of that, we said, a couple of things. Number one, I want to have a communication channel internally where all the positive things people are doing that are executing those steps that we can celebrate with them. But
Sure.
also, I wanted to start introducing them to people that could help them identify that process and those steps. So when you think about that, are there specific process or steps that you walk people through that help them actually transition in a better way?
Yes, I have two programs that I offer, and the way that I, really identify which would be best for the client is I go through a process, a meet and greet. Tell me, how long you've been working, what you've been doing, how long until retirement, what are you thinking about retirement? And then I ask them for three outcomes. Okay, if how will you know that our relationship, me as a coach and you as a client, what are three outcomes that you want us to work on? So I've got two different processes that I use. One is it's through an assessment. It's called a retirement success profile. And there are actually 15 different retirement success factors that they assess themselves on. And they assess themselves, okay, here I am right now with this factor, and where do I want to be when I retire? Let me give you an example. For example, the first one would be, how emotionally distant are you from your work, from your job? And where do you want to be when you retire? So what we do is we look at the gaps
Mm-hmm.
between where they are today and where they want to be with each one of these factors. One is how flexible are they? How self-directed are they? Have they thought about how they're going to replace what helped them, what got them out of bed in the morning and got them to work? Where are they now? Where do they want to be when they retire? So we
Mm-hmm.
take that assessment, we look at where are their strengths and where are some areas that they want to work on. And so we coach to both. We coach, okay, well, here are your strengths. Here's what you're gonna, it's really gonna help you with the transition. And then here are the gaps. Here are the ones that we want to work on. Then I have this other program called Now What? And that is more of it's a program where it really helps identify going from a role to your soul. That's what I talk about when we talk about retirement. You can go from your role to your soul. What's going to really resonate with you and really help you find your new purpose and help you get out of bed in the morning and be excited about your day. The first program I talked about is more of an awareness of what we need to all be familiar with and aware of as we retire, those different factors. And then the Now What program is a much more focused program on specifically, what are some things that you might want to do to bring new purpose into your life.
What have you seen, Sue? I'm looking at these two programs and I'm thinking, man, they both can add significant value to the conversation, to decision making, to figuring out next steps. And I'm sitting here looking at these, I'm sitting here going, this one sounds like if you're an engineer, that would be like ideal. This one, if you're an artist, that would be ideal. Maybe I'm oversimplifying, but do you see tracking based upon background or career experience or interest that one of those paths is better than others? Or do you see them kind of being complementary and applicable to anybody regardless of background?
I think the success profile is probably applicable to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The Now What program is for individuals that have been in one position for quite a while and they really have no idea on where they want to go. For example, I had an engineer go through both programs.
Yeah.
And the engineer, he really wanted Now What? He wanted both of them, but he really, I think, got more out of Now What because he was always an engineer. They were focused on one thing and I don't know about all engineers, but this particular one was. And I think Now What really helped him open up his mind and his eyes a little bit to some other things out there that he could do to take some of the same skills that he was using as an engineer and apply them to something totally different. For example, he said he was at home one night and he saw a guy come out and set up his barbecue grill. He goes, now that would be something I would love to do because I love to put things together and I love to help people. I love to make people happy. He goes, so I could go out and help people put their barbecue grills together after they buy one at one of the stores. So that's just an example, but try to find transferable skills. Yes.
So I was taking some notes here, and I think I missed a little bit. Or Now What did you say? From your row to your soul?
No, from your role.
From your role.
Your role as an employee. What role did you play?
Okay.
When you worked, and then you go from your role to your soul. What is it that you want to? I mean, I think, John, what you've done is you've gone from a role to your soul.
Yeah, that's huge, and it's interesting. I think row could also apply because my mind was going to farming and how I farm my row every day, and I thought, well, it's the same application. It's my role. So, but you're so right because so many people, especially late stage career, I met so many folks that just want to be done. They're in their role. They're maybe lacking the passion that they had at one point of time earlier in their career. And it's like they really need to reconnect with the things that drive them, find their why, find the things that bring them that joy, that contentment. And then to have those transferable skills makes it much easier. And I've just finished reading a book called CEO Excellence, a phenomenal book, but it was actually talking about why the absolute best CEOs in the world, what was unique about them. They brought in 5 traits and things like that. But the stories, I love stories. And so the stories were amazing. The number of them that would took over for a company, maybe they've been in existence for 100 years or 125 years. And they came in with this transformational why statement, or basically they got to the soul of the company. And they're like, wow, how did you come up with that? So oftentimes they went back to the core reason why the founders started the company. It
Sure.
was their soul, the soul of the company. And I
Right.
think within everybody, Sue, they have this thing that drives them, but they don't have the questions to help them uncover it.
Right.
And it sounds like that program you're talking about really gets down to the heart of it.
Yeah, it is. She gives the woman that certified me, she gives an analogy for with an egg. She goes, right now, what do people see you as from the outside? What's your identity? Where do you work? Are you a mother or father? Whatever. That's how people see us. But once you crack open that shell of the egg, there's the yolk. And the
Mm,
yolk is really, like you just said, the heartbeat and the soul. And that's
yeah,
where you want to get to.
it is. So when clients are starting to walk through this period of time, those folks are transitioning. I know that there's probably an inordinate amount of number of possible challenges that they face.
Yes.
But can you think of some common challenges that people face when they're transitioning to retirement?
Sure. I think a lot of times they think they know what it is they're getting into, and then once they get into it, they go through this wake up and go, "Oh my gosh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be."
Sure.
That's one thing. I think something else is they want to be able to go to their role to their soul or their role to whatever it is they want to do. They want instant gratification. And sometimes, again, we have to go back and we have to talk about this is a process. You're not going to jump from one thing to like a job. We go from one job to another. It's not the same thing. And I read an article recently where this lady was talking about, it's okay to take a gap year. you know
Mm,
Take a gap year and think about what you want to do. Go out and talk to some people, talk to some other people that have gone through it, and find out from them what are some of the challenges, what are some of the lessons learned. That often helps. It really does.
I
But I
like
think,
that whole thought of a gap year, Sue. I think that sometimes you hear that with people when they're early on, like so maybe they finish their high school years before they head off into the military, or they finish their college career before they start their job, or so we think about that. But I think that's a great concept to have as we're heading
it
into
is.
retirement.
It is.
I even think about I have a number of clients I'm thinking about now that we're just talking. You're just prompting so many memories in my mind actually of just stories of clients that did not take the time to think through things. They didn't take that gap year. They didn't sit down with someone and go through the questions to get to their soul. And I had a client that retired and they moved to a city they had never really been to before. Was there once. Hours. They moved from Illinois to Arizona, Tucson, and they because they had a high school or a grade school lifelong best friend live there. And so just move there without, and our counsel was take a year, just
Yeah.
rent a place for 3 months, 6 months, a year, go down and enjoy it, but then see how would you like to live there?
Yeah.
Instead, they sold their house, they bought a house, and 3 months into it, called me up and said, that was a horrible mistake. And it cost them a lot of money that we had to
Yes.
go in and change the plan. So the gap here is a great concept.
Yeah. No, and when clients ask me, I want to move, to where my kids are, or,
Mm.
I want to, and I'm like, great, go check it out. Go make sure that your kids want you there as well as you want to be there with them.
Are you
See how
saying
it works,
I
see
don't
how
know,
it works out for a year.
are you saying my kids wouldn't like it if I moved over close to them?
Try it out first, John, before
There
you
we go.
go.
That's wisdom right there.
Or they think, oh, my parents are going to come out here. They're going to babysit. They're going to have a live-in babysitter. Well, guess what? That's something we got to talk about. That's part of the process is talking with other members of your family and talking
Yeah,
about expectations.
right.
Yeah.
That's so critical before you move. So we talked. I keep on mentioning a number of clients that haven't done it well. Can you think through a success story of
Sure.
how coaching somebody or working with them, how that helped them, where they like also their retirement experience was enhanced by going through the process?
I think if we go back to they don't know what they don't know. I
Mm,
think a lot of success stories that I hear from my clients is wow, so you really help, give me, I'm more aware of what I need to be prepared for
yeah.
before I make the transition. and those that are in the transition. I had one client call me, and she was very successful in her career. And she called me after about a year, and she said, contacted me. She said, I'm just on my phone playing games all day. I never imagined I would do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, started the process, and I received the most beautiful, thank you note from her, letting me know that actually she did the work. I just helped her, but she did the
Yeah.
work in going through the process and finding something totally outside of what she did in her career, using some of the same skills, and just loving it. And then there's other clients that tell me, you know what? I'm a lot more prepared than I thought I was.
Mm.
And there's a fear factor. I mean, this was a guy that owned his own business, and he didn't know what he was going to do with himself. And that's what he said. He said, I'm a lot more prepared and confident than I was before we got together and went through the coaching process.
I love hearing that because I think a lot of people, they head into retirement. It's a whole different stage. In some ways, I don't like the word retirement. I
I
don't
don't know.
like it's really that next stage, right? So it's this next stage of my journey.
Right.
I'm on that and an exciting new stage in the journey. So whatever it might be. But we've never done it, so a lot of uncertainty, maybe even a lack of confidence, or it's like, man, what's that going to be like every day? But I love what you said, Sue, by working through the process that some people were able to say, oh, I need to work on this, or here's an idea, something to think through. And
Yeah.
others came in and said, with higher confidence, saying, I am prepared for this, probably more so than what I get. So it's all about developing confidence as
Right.
you head to that next phase, regardless of where you're at.
Yeah.
I think we all need to have wisdom and counsel continuously in our lives. And that seems to be a lot of what it is you walk through with people. To me, that's exciting. You mentioned something that just caught my ear. You said you had a client that is sitting at home playing games on their phone all day, which that's a phenomenon we wouldn't have probably heard 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because technology trends have changed. And so when I kind of think about this, I've also talked to some clients recently, one that is planning on taking a year on a cruise ship or a number of cruise ships, and they're just going to go port to port. And they said it's actually cheaper than renting a house in
I've heard that.
Florida.
Yeah, I have heard that.
But I had another client say, hey, never been to Panama, but we're going to spend a year in Panama and going down there. And so
Yeah.
these are just like newer trends that we're seeing with people, technology, doing things differently. And so how can a person stay updated with latest trends and best practices in retirement planning? Is that something that's always changing?
You know, I stay updated. I'm a member of the Retirement Coaches Association. So we have, meetings every month, and coaches get on there and talk about what they're doing. I learn so much from my colleagues, and there are so many books out there. I'll send you some resources if you'd like. I mean, there's more and more books. There was an article, and I think it was in the New York Times this past week about what is retirement really like. And they
Mm-hmm.
interviewed, like, I don't know, bukus of people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think they ended up sharing 10 stories. All stories are different. And retirement it's kind of morphed, or I guess what I've kind of morphed into, and not just talk about non-financial retirement planning, but it's also goes into longevity and health and wellness. And,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that we need to really focus on as we age, because we're living a lot longer. We're
Oh
living a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
longer now. And so what are some of the things that we can do to continue to live a vibrant life? It's just not going to the gym every day. It's what do we need to do to stay mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
one of those stools on a three-legged stool breaks or falls, it can impact the others. But there are just so many resources out there about retirement. In fact, the engineer I told you about, in fact, I got a note from him the other day. We still, communicate with each other. He says he has been listening to an engineer and his journey on YouTube. So, I mean, there's YouTube. There's just so many resources. Just Google
Mm-hmm.
non-financial planning,
Yeah.
non-financial retirement planning.
So I was trying to think, you had just said something, you put together a number of things together as far as the stool. You said physical, spiritual. What else was there that you just said?
Physical, spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental
Emotional and mental.
health.
Yeah. Yeah. Man,
And
I
in
see.
that, obviously, is spiritual. We all have different ways that we practice spirituality.
Yeah.
Definitely, that plays into that as well.
I see all four of those as critical. I think that's a foundational conversation for someone to go through is
Yeah,
how in the world are you going to manage those four areas as you're heading to that next stage? I think it's
right.
critical for overall health and wellness. It's phenomenal. So all of a sudden I've been thinking about, I have a lot of conversations and even some from the podcast that have actually called back in and have asked different questions. And I sense in the world today, there's a lot of apprehension about a lot of things right now. And I get mixed messaging, the things in the news, I'm not sure. Can I trust it? Do I not trust it? I read this article about retirement. Is that the way it is? Is it not the way it is? What am I going to do? A lot of apprehension. So when some of our listeners out there are saying, I get it, I hear it, I am feeling some apprehension about going into retirement. What big advice or what advice would you give them for those that are feeling apprehensive?
You know, that's a huge question,
Mm,
and it's different for everybody. It's, what is it that, I mean, obviously, financial, wealth is, and health, financial health and wealth is very important. And that, I think that's the first thing that a lot of people think about. And I just heard another quote the other day. I do a lot of reading, and somebody had that question: how do I know when it's time to retire? It's when your time becomes more important than your money. And or time is more valuable than money. I mean, we all want money, but and why do we say time? Because you don't want to work so long that you have regrets. So when your time becomes more valuable than money.
mm. Yeah, I love that. That's excellent. Sue, I know you've talked to many people. Obviously, in your career, you've worked a lot as far as with in HR and a number of different companies and had a phenomenal career. Then you've transitioned now as far as into the role where you're at now. And just talking with you, watching the smile on your face and hearing the energy that you have as in your voice talking about this. If you could look at what you're doing now, what do you find most rewarding about your work as a retirement transition coach?
When people like you invite me to be on their podcast, I mean, that's one thing. When I have individuals contact me and I never knew there was somebody like you out there, you know, because it's a new thing. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a growing niche. They say, "Oh, you're a life coach." I'm like, "No, I'm not a life coach. I specifically focus on the transition into retirement." When I get referrals from other clients, when other financial advisors or companies call me and say, "We do so much to help onboard our employees when they come into the company. We want to do something to offboard them, especially the retirees.
Mm,
And we want to talk to you about, helping our employees." I mean, that's telling me that the value of what those of us that are retirement transition coaches right now, it's getting traction. And
mm,
that's what really makes me feel good is
yeah,
when people see the value in it.
yeah. It's so rewarding. It is. So I thank you for the work you're doing with so many people. It's so impactful in their lives and in the next decades to come. And when you think about it, there's 11,000 people every day turning age 65.
Yes. Yeah.
Which means there's 11,000 people every day turning age 62 when Social Security can begin. And between 62 and Social Security can begin, and 65 when Medicare can begin, and 67 when you're full retirement age. In those 5 years, so many people are planning on retiring, and they have such great uncertainty and lack of confidence in that. And having someone like yourself to talk to is and help to transition them. It's such huge benefit to society. So also, I look at the clock. I mean, it's like 30 minutes have flown by. It's kind of crazy.
Now you're talking about age. I want to say one more thing about, when they ask me, well, I'm 63 years old or 66, it's time for me to retire. I'm like, you know what? You're not a can of soup on a shelf. You don't have an expiration date. You don't have a best buy date. If you like what you're doing,
Yeah.
There's no expiration date. You don't have an expiration date.
Yeah,
So
I love that. I love that. Phenomenal nugget there at the end. So is there anything else that's like a key thing that we've not talked about that you really think that people need to hear before we sign off?
I just think we need to think about just either reading about it, just know what to expect. I think that's the main thing is just
Mhm.
really do some research about what to expect and what are some of the things that you can do to replace what satisfies you and brings you joy and fulfillment at work. What are some of the things that will, you might be able to do the same thing when you retire? Not the same job, but
Mm.
similar areas where you can transfer some of those skills and to do something that brings you joy and fulfillment and helps you live longer.
Yeah.
you know
Well, Sue, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Sure, it was great.
And
Thank you so much for having me.
yeah, loved it. And everybody, make sure you check out the show notes and ways to connect with Sue all around the country and get more information from her and connect with her. And so I'd encourage you to do that. And everyone, thank you so much for taking part today in another edition of Great Decisions, Incredible Lives. And stay tuned next week. And as we kind of start to roll out, this is another great interview with another individual you guys are going to love hearing from. Anyway, Sue, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you again for listening to the Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention podcast with host John Creekmer. Follow us on social media, visit our website, and join our community of like-minded individuals redefining retirement and living incredible lives. Please leave us a review and share our podcast with others who may benefit. We wish you a future filled with purpose, fulfillment, and the joy of living your incredible life in retirement.